237 years ago, Russian leather tanners took some of the best animal hide, I'm not saying reindeer for a reason, and they tanned it in willow and birch bark. Then they added a beautiful cross-grain pattern to it, and that is the leather you are seeing right here. This wallet is 10 years younger than the United States of America. What's even nuttier is that the ship that this leather was on never even made it to Italy where it was supposed to go. It sunk in the Plymouth Sound and was underwater in a ghost ship during the French Revolution, the creation of the Bill of Rights, the fall of Napoleon, the US Civil War, the creation of the Eiffel Tower, the first plane, the first telephone, World War I, the Great Depression, World War II, the moon landing, and the Vietnam War. The Metta Catharina was creaking quietly underwater in the Plymouth Sound. This is a very old piece of leather. Not to brag, it was made for me by one of the best leather craftsmen in the entire world. There have been ships that sunk before with Russian leather in them. That leather did not survive. What makes this leather from the Metta Catharina so special? Even in the 16, 17, 1800s, this leather was a mystery to the Western world. Anything made of this leather was left in your ancestors' will. This was the finest leather of all time. And people will say it's reindeer. That's a lie. But this leather was found in a shipwreck, and the King of England gave some divers the okay to get it. So let's tell the entire story. Hello everyone, it's Editor Michael. This is a very hard story to tell because it is mixed with a lot of lies and myths, and as I was editing this video, I came across a lot more information that busts the whole story wide open, so you'll be seeing me sporadically throughout this video to explain new findings. What's up, Snailians? It's Michael, back with another video. This is the hardest video that I've ever had to make because the story is so grand and this leather is so improbable to be in my right hand right now that it seems like a lie. Also, if you really like my jacket and you're wondering, where did he get that jacket? It's actually the Heat Straps X Carl Morawski jacket. There's a new edition of it dropping on Sunday. But Heat Straps took me out to dinner and they gave it to me like a year ago. So I figured I'd wear it today, and it just so happened to be launching a day before my birthday, December 3rd. In order to properly tell the story, we have to go forwards, then we can go backwards. So in 1973, Ian Skelton, along with 2 other divers for the Plymouth Sound branch of the British Sub-Aqua Club, a diving club, really. They went for a dive in the Plymouth Sound. The Plymouth Sound is a very silty area, so they had 1 to 3 meters of visibility. That is 3 to 9 feet, about, I think a little bit more. And in that low visibility area, they spotted a bronze ship bell. That bronze ship bell said this: "From Metta Catharina von Flensburg," to which I am assuming Ian Skelton said, "Good God!" If it weren't for that bronze ship bell, there would be no Metta Catharina. That was the thing that made them be like, oh, I bet I'm not gonna do a British accent. Oh, I bet we should look and see if there's a ship there. And there was. And on that ship was a boatload of hemp and leather. Hemp at that time was the #1 material used to make ropes. People weren't just getting wasted. The diving bros had absolutely no idea what to do with that leather. So they went to a bar and said, I have absolutely no idea what to do with that leather. That's what Ian Skelton said. And Mr. Robin Snelson heard Ian Skelton saying that and said, hey, I'm a leather crafter. I know what to do with that leather. Synergy, they connected, and all of a sudden they had a beautiful bromance where they said, we can make a dump load of money by selling this leather. Obviously, I'm just being silly. They were probably beyond excited finding a treasure, a national or worldwide treasure. So now Ian Skelton had the ear of Robin Snelson, who had the ear of George Cleverly. It's a big fat annotation coming up. AKA one of the greatest bespoke shoemakers of all time. This is the summary of their company. George Cleverly has been producing footwear for royalty, heads of state, and discerning gentlemen for over a century. Long story short, we now have the 3 musketeers of Russian reindeer leather. We have Ian Skelton, who goes and gets the leather, Robin Snelson, who I believe cleans and then deals the leather, and we have George Cleverly, who makes it into the best and greatest shoes in the entire world. But there was an issue: the King of England. Native is known for their delectable scents that Taylor and I will be reviewing today.
It's giving earthy undertones.
I would agree. This video is sponsored by Native, and with their bestsellers pack, you can fall into anyone's arms with ease. Today we are looking at their body wash, deodorant, and body spray. Clean, simple, effective, and they have some lovely little scents to them. Sea salt and cedar.
I feel
Sucking the whole bottle. In the bestsellers pack, we got the body wash, we got deodorant, and we got body spray and deodorant. The classic Deo provides up to 72 hours of odor protection. It's not sticky and feels dry when applying. The body wash is made with plant-based cleansers, and the deodorant and body spray doubles as an all-over fragrance spray. Normally, this is a $36 value, but you can get it for $24 if you use my code, the Iron Snail. That is 33% off.
I feel...
What do you feel? Tell me what you feel.
I feel refreshed.
The Metta Catharina shipwreck lay within the Duchy of Cornwall, and the Prince of Wales, then the Duke of Cornwall, and now King Charles III, was the only person in the world that could grant permission to retrieve this leather. So George Cleverly and the other two musketeers went to King Charles III with a goal of saying, can we take this leather from your land and use it for shoes? So the three men stood in front of King Charles III and said, can we have the leather? And King Charles III thought for a second and he said, yes! On account of if you follow 3 rules. Number 1, the first leather shoes you make will be for me. Number 2, you may not price gouge things made with the leather. Number 3, you, Ian Skelton, and friends are the only ones allowed to retrieve leather from the Metta Catharina. Everybody else, dead! So now I would assume our 3 musketeers were like, great, thank you, King Charles III. They secretly fist bumped each other, and then they were like, oh my god, I can't believe we just got the leather. Boom! Those 3 men secured the rarest leather on the entire planet. Okay, and here's where the myths are woven, so pay close attention here. In 1978, George Cleverly, the man, chose longtime pupils John Carina and George Glasgow to succeed him, and in the early 1980s, this leather was acquired by George Cleverly. So George Cleverly, the man, was not there. This whole story that was told to me, I believe, was just written correspondence, and Cleverly, the company, just bought a bunch of the leather. I don't know why Cleverly is so tied to the story. Maybe they bought the most leather, maybe they marketed it the best to everyone, but a lot of other shoemakers did have access to this leather as well. The reason I'm telling you this is because this is where the story begins to sort of unravel. So I'm going to be touching on the supposed lost recipe, which I feel like I kind of sort of found, the amount of leather that is actually left in the world, and of course there's an article from the New York Times that says Americans are obsessed with this leather, specifically Americans. So we'll get into that at the end. But I also want to say George Cleverly does not seem to be involved in this crazy myth at all. They look like they just told the facts and myths got built around it because of the nature of the leather. So not blaming any companies or anything like that, just there's a craze around this leather. Michael, there is absolutely no way that was the only Russian reindeer leather in the entire world. There had to be other shipwrecks where this happened. Yes, there was, but the Metta Catharina was special because of the silt and mud that it was in. Something to do with a low amount of iron meant that the leather stayed for a dramatically longer time. There were 4 shipwrecks total where people found Russian leather. None of it was in nearly as good condition as the leather is that we have today. So that's why you hear about the Metta Catharina. It was the unicorn, the 1 in a million shipwreck that landed in the exact right spot. Now we go from 1973 back 191 years before the 3 musketeers were standing in front of the Prince of Wales, now King Charles III, to when the ship was being built in Denmark in 1782. 4 years after that, it was loaded up with this leather, literally this leather in my hand. It was supposed to go to Italy, where then this leather would be made into some of the finest crafts in the entire world and sold to the entire world, but it didn't make it there. There was a huge storm. The storm was so bad that Captain Hans Jensen Tweed decided to take shelter in the Plymouth Sound, but the wind was way stronger than he thought, and it snapped the Metta Catharina's anchor off, and the Metta Catharina crashed into rocks and sank to the bottom of the Plymouth Sound. According to a newspaper at the time, nobody died, everybody made it to shore just fine, but nothing was able to be recovered. But what creeps me out the most is that underwater, 200 years later, the ship laid almost perfectly. The top half was not in so good condition, but the bottom half, because of the silt and mud, was basically perfect. That is just so creepy that it's just underwater, waiting, creaking back and forth. And I really want to go see the Vasa ship in Sweden because that freaks me out. It's so cool. Now, the leather. The first thing that everybody talks about when they're reviewing this leather or talking about it is a certain aromatic fragrance that it gives off, and it certainly has one. To me, it smells like older leather, maybe leather that has been left about for a while, mixed in with smoke, and I don't think it's that extreme, but when Taylor smelled it, she went like this. Ugh. And I was like, wow, the tale of the Metta Catharina lives on through you. That smell is very important. It's mainly because birch is used in the creation of this leather rather heavily. This way of making leather was either not efficient, wasn't allowed, or whatever it may be, but the exact recipe is gone to history because people weren't using it to make money, so out it goes. Okay, here's a bigger note where everything kind of cracks open about the myth a little bit more. So it is believed that this recipe was lost because of the Russian Revolution, but on Style Forum, there's a really great 7-page posting discussion about Russian leather, and a member named Vegtan gives a whole bunch of sources, including this one called The Industries of Russia, published in 1893 by the Ministry of Finance of the Russian Empire. It was translated into English, and although you could technically probably say, well, the exact recipe for this leather was lost, they pretty much outline the entire way that they made this leather. So I wouldn't even really say it's lost, and it can be recreated exactly how it was back then. The leather survived this long, not just because of the birch oil, but the birch oil does a lot of things, making it insect repellent and making it also very water resistant. But the true secret was this leather was wrapped very tightly on the ship, so when it sunk, it got covered in this very dark mud that kind of trashed the outside layer of the leather, but inside it was rolled so tightly that leather was okay. Now the crazy part is, as rare and as valuable as this leather is, it was far too dangerous to recover all of it from the Metta Catharina, so they really only cleared out the bow and the stern, the front and the back of the ship. Everything else, nobody wanted to risk their lives to get. So there is probably a lot more of this leather in the Metta Catharina, in the Plymouth Sound right now, but after they dug up all this leather and looked at the ship and everything like that, silt and mud covered the entire ship, and it is no longer visible or accessible. It's gone. Somewhere in the Plymouth Sound right now, as I speak and you watch this video, there is the ghost remains of a ship buried in mud and sediment full of Russian reindeer. Oh, reindeer! Reindeer made up a tiny, tiny portion of what Russia was exporting with leather. So if this was Russian reindeer leather, it would truly be unfathomably rare. It would be the rarest leather found in the most precarious way and recovered in fantastic condition. So frankly, it's just not. It's not reindeer leather, it's bovine leather, aka cow leather. And not just because it would be incredibly rare, but because this was tested by a lab to see what it was made of. There was proteins found in the leather that proved it is in fact cows. Anyways though, that is about it. I will see you later and talk to you later. If you're interested in getting a wallet just like this, I put the guy that made this for me, his link in the description. His name is Robert Ross. He's retiring. He made things for George Cleverly and gun makers and everything like that. He is probably undoubtedly one of the best leather crafters in the entire world. He is 1 degree separated from the entire story I just told. The final two things left are the amount of leather that is out there right now that is waiting to be made into something, and America's obsession with this leather. The first thing is, this leather, since it's so marketable, there's always a last supply left, it seems like there's always one more hide or one more round of shoes or something like that. It is depleting. I have no idea how much is left. I'd assume George Cleverly has a bunch. I know Robert Ross has a hide, so who really knows there? But the other thing is that Americans are very obsessed with this, according to articles. It's just such a cool thing to market that it's very hard for brands to talk about it without the story getting blown up every time. So this is the most accurate information I could find. Please leave a comment below if there's any other information you have so people can read it. Okay, see you later. Goodbye.